All right. Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Prehistoric America. This is a another history stream on every Wednesday. I do these pieces, and we'll do a South American next Wednesday, and we're gonna do Prehistoric America. Then we're gonna do North America. So I'm gonna drop some pieces. Um, we're gonna put this in perspective. We're not gonna go into it. I'll drop the link for y'all, so Um, yeah, man. Let's see who was up in here. And he said, "Okay, what's going on, DeAndre? Salute to you." But yeah, man, let me get set up for a minute because I think this is going to be a little good read and things like that. So yeah, I'm going to let me set my thing up for a minute. What playlist. We already know what time it is. If y'all want to know, it's gonna go to the dark history, and we're gonna save it. All right. So we're going to talk about prehistoric America. We're going to talk about the areas when the earth was like one or landmass and things like that, during research. Shouts out to this brother right here with the real history, www.com, talking about some ancient stuff. And he travels and he still does the great work he's doing. And he's going to probably revise certain things on this website as well. Probably add Japan later on. We'll see what he's going to do. The website is still getting his clicks and his troops out. So we're going to read this. Okay. Ancient man and his first civilization in the Americas. Here's the legend. Mesoamerica, Mexico, Central America, pre-Columbian, before Columbus, Amerindian equals indigenous Indians of North and South America. Paleo-Indian, Paleo-American, the original black settlers of the Americas. That's what we're going to talk about. That's the whole subject. But we'll do an expansion on Mesoamerica probably next month. I ain't gonna promise y'all things. We're gonna talk about that, and then we're gonna talk about South American, but we're also gonna talk about Mesoamerica probably next week or next month. I'll have to make up my mind because I'm not sure because they all tie in together, but we'll see. Okay, for the special page for the Black Native Americans, please visit this page, Black U.S. Indians and Paleo Americans. Okay, we're gonna do this for a minute. I'm gonna go right back to it. Why Crystal called them Indians. Of course, this is little pictures and things like that. Black Indians and all that. Okay. So with that, I'm gonna give y'all the link to this. Y'all can look at this at your own time. I'm not gonna read that. I'm gonna focus on how this is. I'm gonna put it in the live chat so y'all can get the meat of it. Greetings, Shar. What's going on, Pastor? Salute to you, bro. We're gonna go paste this. I'm gonna drop it. Bam. So we're gonna go right back in here. Okay, so for me, we're gonna read this. Okay, the discovery of a bird-like dinosaur in South America has a paleontologist rethinking when, where, and how one group of raptors evolved. The rooster-sized dinosaur is called the Botree raptor. Okay, B tree rapper. Okay, B tree rapper. My fault. It's the pronunciation. We're gonna pronounce this again. The rooster side dinosaur is called the B tree rapper. It says B tree raptor. B tree raptor or the Gonzozerum, and it has a long head, long tail, wing-like forelimbs. It is serrative like a steak knife suggests it was a carnivore. B tree raptor is related to the Velociraptor. They presume cunning killer made famous by Hollywood. Both belong to a class of a bird-like dinosaurs that ran swiftly on two legs, are called Dromaeosaurus. Dromaeosaurus. The new found suggests such raptors go back much further in time than previous thought. Let's see. And here we go. This ferocious predator's feet bore large sickle-shaped claws on its second toes. Yep, that's a raptor. There was raptors in this area. There's some truth to that. So if you want to look at the bee tree raptors, here's the bee tree raptors right here. These are bee tree raptors that they're talking about. This species right here. That really kind of exists. They're like dinosaur-like creatures. Most animals were dinosauric anyway, and that's why the ecology done killed them or whatever. Velociraptor. Quick plundering period is called late Cretaceous. Length is 6 feet. The 6.1 meters. Location Asia. See, these animals exist in this period. They kind of died and humans came after. So animals was before humans. So we already know the evolution of that and the DNA. Unrecently, dromaeosauruses have been found only in Asia, North America, and only in the Cretaceous period, which ran from 145 million to 65 million years ago. Evidence that they exist in the southern hemisphere has been mounting. Today's announcement of that well-preserved fossil represents the first definitive evidence that the dromaeosauruses roam South America as well. Here's why that's important. About 200 million years ago, the Earth has just one giant landmass called Pangaea. Toward the end of the Jurassic period, it's a split in the two. What we call Laurasia. Laurasia eventually became North America. That's what they call it, Laurasia. See, Laurasia was known as North America, as you can see right here. And they're telling you about it right here. Laurasia eventually became North America, Asia, and Europe. Right here. This is called Triassic period. This is the Triassic period they're talking about. Okay. The other chunk of Gondwana developed into the continents of the southern hemisphere in India, since dromaeosauruses had only found in places that used to be a part of Laurasia. Scientists figured that the beasts evolved into being after Pangaea split. But the bee tree raptor fossil in South America, which dates back 90 million years and closely resembles the fossils from the north, and means one of the two things. Either dromaeosauruses exist when the Pangaea was intact, or the newfound bee tree raptor is north-like alikes evolved separately, yet with remarkably similar results. Odds being against such striking parallel. Evolution, paleontologists speculate the dromaeosaurus is more like originated more than 180 million years ago. Before the Pangaea broke apart, the newly discovered fossil also shows that the creatures developed slightly different characteristics after they split up. The bee tree raptor is one of those special fossils that tells a bigger story about the Earth's history and the timing of evolutionary events, said Peter Makovsky, curator of the dinosaurs at the Field Museum. It not only provides definitive evidence for more global distribution and longer history from dromaeosauruses than was previously known, but also suggests that the dromaeosauruses on northern and southern continents took different evolutionary routes after the landmass that they have occupied drifted apart. But the bee tree raptor fossil was found in northwestern Patagona, the southern end of the South American continent, about 700 miles southwest of Buenos Aires. There we go. They said up in there. Okay. So let's look at this. The pre-median is 225 million years ago. That's the Pangaea. Everything was one land mass. That's how the old Earth looked like, right? And here's how Laurasia, 200 million years ago, Laurasia and Bonawanda or something like that. Yeah, everything was connected. It was one sea, and the sea was called what? The Terra Sea. The sea was different. There was no Atlantic Ocean at the time. The equator was new. So the Earth was different back then. It was all one. And then here's the Jurassic period. This is called Triassic. Now, 200 million years ago is Triassic, and you got the pre-median. That's way back in 225 million years ago, and 200 million years ago, you got the Triassic. Now, the Jurassic, everybody knows. Everybody knows the Jurassic period. Here we go. This is where they kind of formed off. It started like this and then broke off right here. And then there you go. Now, the Cretaceous is 65 million years. That's what these Beachy raptors come from right in here. That's when it was kind of split off then. And that's how the world kind of changed. Now you got the present day. We don't know what this is. This is where humans and everything formed. So whole nother block right here. So interesting. 135 million years ago, that's the Jurassic period. 65 million years ago. That's a long time. So the Earth goes back to 225 million years ago. I wish SKC was here, but if he didn't know the history, he would have known. So we deal with DNA, genetics, and bone structures over here, boy. So and that's what it was, but you know how it is. And yeah, they all cammed up over there. Okay, black settled Americas before 130,000 BCE. Black settled the Americas. Okay, study humans were in America 100,000 years earlier than we thought. By Gleason, Crisfield, CNN, April 26, 2017. Yeah, I remember this. They talked about this when I had this website around 2012, supporting this brother right here. The remains of the mastodon discovered during the routine evacuation in California shows possible human activity in North America 130,000 years ago, or about 115,000 years earlier than previous thought. Yeah, that's the indigenous dark-skinned people then. So we already know. They try to say Indians in the Bay hunting, California engraving by Jean Augustine Franklin, 1789, 1839, from the picturesque voyages around the world by Louis Chores. He's a French guy, 1795 to 1828, 1822. So they show you the pictures of the indigenous people right here. So you already know what time it is with the bow and arrow and everything. Okay. The paleontologist with San Diego Natural History Museum discovered the remains of the elephant-like animal more like 20 years ago. But it wasn't until the scientists were able to accurately date the findings, possibly rewrite the history of the New World as we know it. This whole new ball game. Stephen Holden, co-director of the Center for American Paleolithic Research. The paper's lead author told CNN the discovery of changes the understanding of when humans research North America's study to be published this week in the Science of journal Nature, said the numerous limb bones fragments of a young male mastodon found at the site show spiral fractures, indicating that they were broken while fresh. Some of the mastodon bones found at the site. Okay. It's like an elephant. That's a mastodon. That's like an elephant, a creature with tusk, large tusk. It was a mastodon creature. It's like a cave creature, evolution of it. Yeah, so we're going to go into it in depth. And these are mastodons. There's a difference. A mastodon is kind of like an elephant. It's a different beast. It's out of the family. I forget what species they call. Okay, here you go. American mastodon. Mammoth, Americum, Mammothus, in the language, woolly mammoth. This is a woolly mammoth, mastodon, American mastodon, like an elephant, and the African savanna elephant. They're out of that family with the tusk. That's what they have. 1 millimeter, 3 feet. Yeah, I think some big ass creatures. Into my cave period, right? The scientists say they found the hammer stones and stone anvils at the site, showing that the ancient humans had the manual skill and knowledge to use stone tools to extract the animal's bone marrow and possibly use its bones to make tools. But the site was named Crete Mastodon Site, the honor of Richard Crete, who made the discovery and led evacuations. It's in San Diego right here. If y'all want to know the research, you can find it. An advanced Radiometric dating technology allows scientists to determine the mastodon bones belong to the um late Pliocene period. Okay. The pace okay, the late Pliocene period, okay, or 130,000 years old. Okay, with the margin of error of plus minus of 9,400 years, but the bones serve teeth. Clear signs of having been deliberately broken by humans with manual their dexterity, okay, manual dexterity and experimental knowledge, but Holland said in press release. But experts agreed that the earliest records of human ancestors in North America is about 15,000 years old. But the discovery of the Crete site shows that the human ancestors were in the New World 10 times that the length of time, said paleontologist Lawrence Vescaria. Visaria or something like that, or Vescaria. The 11 scientists involved in the study told CNN it's too early to tell the impact of the new findings, for now they want the general audience to see it and understand, for their peers to study it, even challenging it. Comment of 130,000 BCE is long before the ancient African is known to have occupied East Asia. Therefore, of the theory of the ancient humans entering the Americas by crossing the Bering Straits, and they bypassing the frozen North American continent by boat travel along reach Australia by island hopping more than 60,000 years ago. The first migrants of Australia were a part of a wave that originally left Africa, worked their way through Arabia and Asia. They reached Australia about 45,000 years ago. Okay. And as a second wave traveled India and researched Australia 4,230 years ago by boat. Yep, by those canoes I mentioned in the history of Hawaii, talking about the Polynesians and things like that, are thought to have brought the dingo with them. Exactly. That's where it all came about. And this is their like travel migration right here. The map showing the mountain ranges in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Many ocean islands are actually visible parts of the submerged mountains over time, but the mountains rise up and the mountains go down in a process called orogeny. Thus, over long periods of time, the islands appear and disappear. Ancient men will have island hopped using islands that no longer exist. Yeah, some islands was destroyed by earthquake and things like that, and that's why you got all those storms and stuff. It's possible. The world's a lot different back then. And the ecology of the earth, you know how it is. After considering the possibilities, clearly this is the most logical route for the first settlers of Americas. That's what they say, the logical route. That's what they say. South Atlantic Ocean, yeah, in Brazil and all that they're showing you. Please note, this scenario relates only to the first settlers of the Americas. There were undoubtedly many more crossings, including across the Bering Strait, as how Mongol Americans arrived much later. It says much later. Here we go. Albino lies, of course, is expected, saying yeah. We ain't gonna get into that. We already know this. Talking about the white man. Okay. New evidence of the man in the Western Hemisphere. As with the Dromaeosauruses, new discoveries are forcing scientists to reconsider their early theories of human presence in the American hemisphere as well. The time of the first peopling of Mesoamerica remains a puzzle, as does it for that of the Americas in general. It has been widely accepted the groups of people entering the American hemisphere from northern Siberia, perhaps by a land bridge across the Bering Straits of Alaska, that might have existed then. This is at some time in the late Pleistocene or Ice Age. I don't call it the Ice Age. I don't say Ice Age period. And there's already abundant evidence abundant evidence that by 11,000 BCE, 11,000 BCE, hunting peoples have occupied most of North America south of the glacial ice cap covering the northern part of North America. But these men hunted such large grazing mammals are mammoth, mastodon, horse, and camel. They were armed with spears, which the tip with finely made bifacial chip points of stone. But now, however, the new discoveries, the new data for the old sites are changing our understanding of the peopling of the Americas. For decades, consensus thinking was the first Americas were big game hunters, the Clovis, who traveled from Asia across the Bering Land bridges near the end of the Ice Age. About 12,000 years ago, named for an occupation site is Clovis, New Mexico. These earliest people, called the Paleo Indians, are known for their fluted spear points. The Clovis people were thought to have settled in the interior plains of North America between 11,500 and 11,000 years ago. From there, they colonized the western Hem, following the diminishing game through the upland plains of Central America and the Andes, avoiding the coast of the tropical forest, reaching the tip of the South America by 10,000 years ago, the end of the glacial period. The Clovis migrating theory, however, developed early in the history of radiocarbon dating, before much was known for the regions outside the Clovis heartland of the United States of America, US of A. Now, abundant the new data from several of those areas cast doubt on the theory. According to these findings, Clovis was not settled, but early to be the ancestor of Central South American Paleo Indians. Several well-documented sites south of the US of A border are much older than the Clovis. And in addition, few Ice Age cultures on either side of the land bridges have fluted spears points or hunted big game. There are other problems with the old Clovis theory. The Ice Age glaciers at the time covered all of Canada, except for a few small pockets and some offshore Pacific islands. This would still have allowed for the hopping down the United States, but that's very iffy. Yeah, so we're going to get in North America. It talks about the history, the Kennewick Man. We're going to talk about that. They found researchers. These are darker skinned people once again. We're going to see who's up in here. And we're going to go up in here. What's going on, American Negro? Salute, Kylie Jane. Yeah. Everybody's in here today. What's going on, Trinity? Yeah, man. We're just going to get in here today. So we're going to break this down in North America. In North America, the oldest evidence of human habitation is a sinkhole at the Warren Mineral Springs, Florida. In the late 1950s through to the 1970s, group led by the Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel retired William Royal explored the Little Salt Spring as well. As Warren Mineral Spring, 3 miles distance, discovered a huge deposits of fossils, remains of literally hundreds of species, from a saber-toothed cats to giant ground sloths, were discovered, along with the remains over 200 Paleo-Americans. The Warren Mineral Springs site is uniquely African, they would say, and it's discussed in North America section, linked to the page. We'll deal with that later. We'll get in that topic later and go in depth on that. There's a piece on North America. Okay, Kennewick Man. Kennewick skeleton is a male who died between 45 to 50 years of age. He was approximately 175 centimeters, 5'9" tall. That's what it means in that, centimeters tall. That means he's 5'9". Based on average of all statured estimates, the geologically correlate age for the skeleton is 6,700 to, I would say, 6,700 to 9,000 year old BP. Like other early American skeletons, Kennewick remains exhibit number of the more morphological features that are not found in modern populations, which is true. Modern populations is true. For all the craniometric dimensions, typically probabilities of membership in modern populations were 0, indicating that the Kennewick is unlike any other reference of samples used. Even when the least conservative individual distance are used to construct typically probabilities. Kennewick has a low probability of membership of any of a late Holocene reference of samples, but similar to the results were obtained by the Australians at 1997 for Upper Paleolithic samples from Asia, Africa, and Europe, and Paleo-Indian groups. They are, I'll say, and are not surprisingly considered that the Kennewick is separate by roughly 8,000 years from most of the reference samples in Howell's 1989 and Hanahara in 96. Most craniometrically similar samples appear to be from the South Pacific and Polynesian. Yeah, it says South Pacific and Polynesian, as well as the Anu of Japan, which is true. Ani or Anu or Japan. Yeah, I forget how to pronounce that, but Japan, it was from Japan too at the time, old Japan. And pattern affinities with the population of Polynesian, South Asia, Southern Asia, and not with the American Indian and European in reference. Yeah, these are Australoid people. They're calling. I did a stream called The History of Hawaii. It talks about Polynesians and everybody, the Tonawalt Tasmanians. I talked about that in the stream. That was not I think that was not an open panel. I don't believe. No, that wasn't an open panel. That was a good stream. It's a small stream. It's in my dark history streams. You can find it. I did a history of Hawaii. It's like a 2-hour stream. So that's it. At the left, Clay mock up what Kennewick man may have looked alike. Dawn before the genetic information was available. Therefore, the mindset was of a different people. And that's what the bust looked like. They found the bones. So they're giving you ideas. Click here for the full subject of the Kennewick man and the albino lies associated with him. Okay. Here's what they would look like. What you see right here, the Kennewick man right here, that's what they're giving you the bones. This is a clay bust, right? Like they found Lucia. They made this with clay. And he was darker skinned. So Dravidian Indian is a great example. Their species, right? They came from this guy. That's the species they come from. Now, the Mani Thailand, I did a piece on Thailand talking about this guy. I think we had an open discussion with DeAndre. He's out of that stock. It's old. They're descendants. They exist. They different tribes, but he's a descendant of that. Same with the Fiji Polynesia. You know, all these species came from the Kennewick man. So it's basically like, you know, they're putting them together. It's giving you an idea what they would look like. See, these are descendants, and the ancestor goes back to that. So it goes further back, you know, certain DNA. I wish they had blood DNA so we can study and just put pieces together. Here's Japan. The Ainu of Japan. Ainu are believed to be the first settlers of northern Japan, not southern Japan, but they are thought to have migrated there by 13,000 BCE. They are ethnic group of indigenous to the Hokkaido, the northern part of Honshu, northern Japan, and the Kurili Islands, much of the Sakhalin, and the southernmost third of the Kamchatka Peninsula. The word Anu means human, so they call them human. Okay, in the Anu language, there are over 150,000 Anu today. However, the exact figure is not known, as many Anu hide their origins to protect against racism, or in many cases are not even aware of them because of crossbreeding since the ancient times. Yeah, they say crossbreeding. Here we go. Official discrimination against the Anu was outlawed in 1997. But the origins of Anu are uncertain. They are likely a branch of the Proto. I'll read this again. The origins of the Anu are uncertain. They are like a branch of the Proto-Japanese Jomon stock, the original inhabitants of Japan, that migrated from Africa some 70 to 60,000 years ago and occupied Japan, most of Asia before the Mongol expansion from China. The current Japanese people are the Yayoi, who immigrated to Japan from China. They said they immigrated from Japan to Japan from China circa 355 BCE. So the average Japanese is Chinese and Korean. They said descendant wise, which is interesting. And so the ones, the Anu people, the ancient people, they will look like this on the bottom. We'll get to them in a minute. Various Other Asian Aborigine populations for Okinawa to Taiwan. See, DeAndre can tell you about Okinawa sometimes. From Okinawa to Taiwan, as far as away as Australia, are also thought to be related to them. Yep, these are the people. And they talk about the crossbreed. And it should be remembered that these pictures reflect people who have lived among the Japanese for over 2,000 years. Crossbreeding naturally did take place. And that's what they was talking about, crossbreeding. Here we go. That's the people, what they look like. They could be darker or lighter skinned people, but there was some crossbreeding with the Japanese. So some of the Japanese, if they're mixed with the Chinese, whatever, they got some blood ties to these people as well. Japan is kind of tricky because Japan was kind of worse. So for me to look at that and look at this research, I mean, I could have did a piece on this years ago, but I knew they came with this study, and Japan's a whole nother beast. So we can just nip that in the bud. So we're gonna go ahead and check it out. So yeah, we're gonna be here for a while. Yeah, we're gonna read down this in a minute. And we'll see what's going on in here. Oh, nobody don't want to come and play, huh? Yeah, we're gonna go in here for a minute because I know this is kind of tricky. Okay, the observation by Marshall Everett stated that the Ainu chieftain had attended to the anthropology exhibits at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. In St. Louis or St. Louis, this allows such close examination as a follow. They Anu are dark skinned and slow witted, and they're old men with their long beard, look like the patriarchs. They're almost the same height as the Japanese, but are heavier. They haven't the Almani. They haven't the Almani, the Mongolian. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to skip this part. Okay, the Almani, but Almani. I don't want to skip this part. Dark skin, look at beard. The Almani. Okay, Anu have wavy hair, often curly. Okay, black is the predominant color, but the hair of the children is lighter, often auburn. Yeah, some truth to that. They're showing you right here what they look like. Okay. And all Anu hair is coarse and strong, but they are light reddish brown in color. It could be them over here in this guy right here. Anu Elder right here. Yeah, that's what they look like. They're darker skinned people in different shades of brown. Have none of these sallower yellowness of the Mongolian. See, a lot of yellow Mongolians look like that. But some Mongolians originally were dark skinned too, but that's a whole nother topic about the Mongols. So they're talking about Chinese and things like that, you know, out of that species. These people's been around, like we just read, a long time. Okay. They have expressive eyes. Okay. Almost every Anu eyes are light brown in color. So that's true. Okay. That's very true. I've heard about that. I think I've seen documentaries when they talk about this too. Black eyes are rare among them. Their foreheads are narrow, slope gently backward, but their nose are slightly hooked. Okay. That makes sense. Hooked and flat and broad with wide nostrils, but they have large mouth and firm, thick lips, but they have exceptionally long earlobes. Yeah. Yeah. They are part of that Kenwick species. There's a reason for that. The Kenwick species come from these people. That's what they have. So we already know. The peoples of the Andaman Islands off the coast of Burma have been determined to be the same genetic lineage as of the Anu Japan. Perhaps they will give you some indication of what the Anu originally looked like before the crossbreeding. Okay. Before the crossbreeding, okay, I'll give you an example. That's a female, that's a male. This is what they look like in the crossbreeding. Okay, now we get into it. The Andaman Islanders, what you say, the Anu people, they would look like these people, what we're seeing right here. They're from those islands. And their hair does look like, what is it, a reddish brown auburn right here? Yeah, these are, they're darker skin, but they did crossbreed with, this is crossbreeding Japanese or mixed with China, whatever, right? These are crossbreed. These are the mulattoes of Japan. They're mixed. And we talked about this before. And it's the crossbreeding. The darker skinned people you're seeing right now, those are what they would look like back in the day. And that's a long time. So, you know, that we can't go further back now. Okay, National Park, NPS, U.S. Department of the Interior. Oh, you already know about it. Okay, let's read a little piece of that. I'm not going to get into that. So they saying Springs, talking about, okay, 10,000 years ago, 13,000 years old, location California, Brown Valley's man, 8,900 years, location in Minnesota. They're showing you all the bones they done found. Bohee woman, 10,800 years old in Idaho. Horn Shelter, 9,600 years old, Texas. In Colorado, they found the Hourglass Caveman, 7,900 to 7,700 years old. Gordon Creek, 9,700 years old in Colorado. Two places in Colorado, Gordon Creek and Hourglass Man. They found them in the same place. Grimes Point woman, 9,700 years old, Nevada. Kenwood Man, 9,300 years old. Location, Washington State. That's up in Seattle. That's where they found him on the top of there. Pelican Rapids woman, 7,800 years old. Location, Minnesota. Okay. And what's another place in Minnesota? Browns Valley. He's older than that. The Spirit Caveman, 9,400 years old, Nevada. Okay. So two places in Nevada, they found Grimes Point woman in Nevada. And what else they found is Spirit Caveman and also the Wizard Beach Man. Three things in Nevada. Okay. 9,200 to 9,500 years old. He's older than the Spirit and the Grimes Point woman. Okay. Two in Texas. The one in Texas, the Horn Shelter, that's 9,600, 9,000 to 11,000 years old. Texas, Wilson Leonard. Okay. They said several sets of investigators collaborating bioarchaeological studies with the Pacific Northwest. Most of this work is known for personal communication, and details are available in advanced publication. At least these sets research. DNA studies and three sets of researchers undertake the projects and develop more extensive wide range of osteologic studies. Dr. David Smith have graduated as graduate students at the UC Davis, continuing efforts to recover the analyzed DNA samples from teeth and bone. These efforts include work on the early Braden and DeMoss remains with the Yohe and the Pasek in 2000, and the work of the Condon remains with the Shatters and the Heckenberger 2000. Meriwether Israel 1995 also attempt to extract DNA from the teeth. Archaeological sites in Washington State, Shadden's 2000, and okay, Weltzer in 98. Okay, so yeah, they found the DNA right here, and they talk about the Polynesians like that. I ain't gonna read it. That's a lot of reading. And they put that in note. Yeah, it's talking about the albino stuff. Yeah, I'll give y'all the whole link soon. I read this. Yeah, that's a long read. I'm gonna skim through that. That's DNA reading. He talking about DNA. Okay, let's get into the meat of it. Here it said new right here. Okay, we're gonna get to this part right here. Let's see how y'all doing in the chat. See y'all doing in the chat. Yeah, he was saying facts and all that. Okay, good. I want to keep it. You know what? I'm gonna keep it bigger. Hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna make it bigger for y'all. Yeah, man, this is some great work. The old standard account about 11,600 years. When ice sheets still covered parts of North America, a baby boy lived, died, and was buried in a rocky grave and field in western Montana. A whole new genome sequence of the infant and the oldest genome and sequence of American individual identifies as a community as ancestors of Native Americans who lived on the continent today. As always, this type of statement is contradicted elsewhere. In addition to analysts of the child mitochondria DNA indicated Answick 1 belonged to what is known as the D4H3A haplogroup or lineage. Of the finding is important. As surprising, according to researchers, because the D4H3A line is considered to be a founder lineage, belonged to the first people to arrive in the Americas, although rare in most Native Americans in the United States and Canada today. The D4H3A genes are found more commonly in Native people of South America, far from Montana cliff beneath which Anzac I was laid to rest. Okay. We must always be careful in those analyses and conclusions we accept. Sad to say, but most albino scientists have an agenda. Facts. To advance the false albino history. 2, to diminish the dominance of blacks in human history, which is so true. And that's why I support this website and my content is based on that. I want to get in depth on that. One of the tricks of albino deceivers to use trick terms in the case, they use them Malta, Siberia to imply Mongols, like the current people who lived there. But in the ancient past, the people of the Malta were a Caucasian-like people, demonstrated by their artifacts and genetics. Consider these examples of wiki. In 2014, the autosomal DNA of a male infant from a 12,500-year-old deposit in Montana was sequenced, and DNA was taken from a skeleton referred to as the Answick I. The skeleton was found in close association with several Clovis artifacts of comparisons showed strong affinities with DNA from Siberian sites, virtually ruled out in closely affinity of an Answick I. With the European sources, see the Sultrian hypothesis. The DNA of the Answick I sample showed strong affinities with sample Native Americans and populations, which indicate that the sample derived from the ancient population that lived on the near Siberia. But the Upper Paleolithic Malta study. Here's the genome of the lake Pleistocene human from Clovis burial site in western Montana, February 13, 2014. They had the PDF file. I ain't gonna get into that. It's a lot of DNA research. Let's see. Let's go and check this out. First Americans and all that. Oh, so what? Oh, it's Texas A&M. I'm not gonna get into that. Yeah, you could. Yeah, I'll give y'all the links. So I'm gonna skim through this. It's talking about the okay. Mesoamerica. Yeah, I ain't gonna get into the DNA. So we already know the Amazon, Australasia. Yeah, I kind of covered that. This gives you a lot of DNA. Let's get into Mesoamerica and South America. Okay. Foundings of human remains in Mesoamerica, South America. The oldest of these are the Australoid racial type. That means Australoid people would be like the Polynesians, of course, your Southeast group people. Let's just keep it that. I'm not going to go in depth on the Australoid people. I wish they do a piece on that. And that's a different species. But the next oldest are the South Asian Polynesian racial type. Here we go. These are much older than anything in North America, but this indicates that the migration pattern of the first settlers of the Americas was not from North America going south, but rather from South America to North America. Facts. True. That is so true, because Polynesian islands went to South America, then they went up to North America. That is so true. There's many ways to get into the U.S. They tell you that lie, they came from the top of Asia. We're going to get into that later. We'll talk about South America next week and cover that. This ties in to this history. We're talking North America today, but we're going to talk about South America tomorrow. It's just the history. We give me peace. We're talking about prehistoric America. See, we went to the dinosaurs to the humans, right? That's my correlation right here. Then, of course, there are the Olmec, the people who brought civilization to the Americas with their technology, art, and culture. When all the new information is complied, it's clear that they was not one peopling of the Americas, but rather they was at least five. They said at least five. Here we go. For more than 100 years, research have claimed that there were very early human sites in the tropical forests of the eastern South America by the end of 1998. Then evacuated the sites had produced remains with the beginning dates of 11,000 years ago and slightly earlier. Sierra de Capivara National Park is a national park in the northeastern region of Brazil. It has many prehistoric paintings, but the park was created to protect the prehistoric artifacts and paintings found there. It has become a World Heritage Site in 1991. Its archaeologist and Needy Gideon is best known archaeologist site in the Pedra Furada, this large sandstone rock shelter located in the thorn forest of the northeastern Brazil, has been at the center of controversy for many years. Pedra Furada includes a collection of rock shelters used for thousands of years by human populations. But a site investigations found stone tools and a charcoal harvest at the earliest levels. But the first evacuations yield in artifacts with the carbon 14 dates of 48,000 to 32,000 years BP. Repeated analyses have confirmed this dating, carrying this range of dates up to 6,000 BP. Archaeologist levels that are well evacuated yield dates between 160 to 1,000 years BP, 17,400 BP. The collection of Stone Age artifacts include darts, atlas, but no arrows or no arrows or bows. Unlike the Clovis sites, those in Brazil, including painting caves and rock shelters, food remain include nuts, ligaments, fish, shellfish, small game animals. Among the artifacts are triangular, sometimes stem points, but no fluted points. Points refers to the spear or arrow tips. But the newly dated sites include Cavana de Pedra Pintada and Santana de Racho and Baquet in Brazil. Okay, new story in Brasilia. AFP. I'll say October 9th, 2013. That is almost a decade old. That's about 8 years ago. It was 8 years ago. I remember they was talking about this stuff. New exhibit in Brazil showcased the artifacts dating as back as 30,000 years ago, throwing a wrench in the commonly held theory humans first crossed the Americas from Asia a mere 12,000 years ago. But the 100 times on display in Brasilia includes the cave paintings and crematic art and depict animals and ceremonies and hunting expeditions and even scenes from the sex lives of the ancient group of early Americans. The artifacts come from the Serra de Capivara National Park in Brazil's northeast Piauí state, on the border of the Amazon and the Atlantic forest, which attracts the hunter-gatherer civilization that left behind this hoard of local art. Since the 1970s, Franco-Brazilian archaeologist Needy Gideon has headed a mission to carry out the large-scale evacuation of Piauí's interior. It's difficult to think that there exists as a site anywhere with a higher concentration of a cave art. 80-year-old Gideon told AFP many paths led to America. Other traces of the civilizations included charcoal remains of the structure fires, explained Gideon, who hails from the Sao Paulo to dates these oldest traces of the human existence in the Americas. She emphasized that the widely held theory has suggested human beings only reached the Americas some 12,000 years ago from Asia, but crossing the Bering Strait to reach Alaska. But some archaeologists contend the flake pebbles at the Brazilian sites are not evidence of crude human made fire. Okay, let me get this off the screen. What the hell was going on there? Human fire. Hearth made some 400 millennia ago. Yeah, 400 millennia ago, but are rather geofacts, natural stone formation, not a man-made one. Okay, but Gideon said she believed the Syria dwellers may have come originally from Africa. She said the cave art provides compelling evidence of early human activity to the paintings. Estimate. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, hold on. Hold on, y'all. I done missed my place. This damn shit. Hold on, y'all. I'm messed up right now. Yeah. Okay. Where did I left off? Not a man-made one. Okay. Gideon said believes in Africa. She caves evidence. Okay. Early human paintings. Estimates dates back to 29,000 years. She said the nodding, when it began in Europe and Africa, it did here too. Other sites, including the Vasconcelos in Mexico and Monteverde in Chile, also indicates the presence of the communities of tens of thousands of years ago. These sites have led the archaeologists to speculate that the people traveled various routes to reach the Americas at the different stages, and archaeologists in Gazelle Jatrini Felicia told AFP. Okay, so we're going to get into it. So we're not even worried at this point. So, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to show you the plane. There's this area right here. This is in Brazil, by the way. And so, of course, they're showing you on the map in Brazil, this part of Brazil, in the Amazon jungles. And they show you the migration. We showed you the map earlier and things like that. And the paintings on the wall, rock art right here. More Pedra Fedora rock art. Yeah. Here we go. The animals, the indigenous people. There they go. It was intelligent. I don't know what's, some early peoples like the indigenous people would do, right? That's what they people look like. Look at them. Wild stuff. Cultural. Yeah. They drew on the walls. At Tamia, an oil field site northern of Venezuela, fragmentary tools were found with the cut of the mastodon bones in the spring where culturally natural materials have become mixed. One tool is a bipointed style point, but the ancient habitat was swampy, wooded, and subtropical, but the radiocarbon dates range too widely for comfort. From about 41,000 to 11,000, to 12,000 BP, late Pleistocene, people may have killed mastodon there, but exactly when is not certain. Nearby Colombia, early pre-pottery sites have been found, and notably at El Yabo and Falcon, that the date to El Habo, noted by El Habo and Falcon, that the date to about 14,920 BCE. Their carved stone was used for such objects, and small pendants in shell and bone are also known to have been used. Some of these sites contain triangular points, which others have grounded stone tools, but founded remains in the tropical forests and fruits and nuts. In the Andes of the highland Peru, early work uncovered possible big game kill sites daily to as early as 20,000 years ago. But these are no clear association with the human sites, with the triangle sometimes the stem points of diverse modern fauna and flora date to the between 11,500 and 8,500 years ago. But the first secure evidence of the early Paleo Indians on the Pacific coast was from the two South Peruvian sites with beginning dates between 11,100 to 10,700 years ago. At the site of the Quambrada and Jagawi, the ancient hearths contain carbonized fragments of the stone tools and remains of the shellfish, small fish, and birds, but no large game. And that's in Brazil. And then you got Mexico City. The test skulls from found in Mexico suggest they are formed 13,000 years old, shed fresh light on how humans colonized the Americas. But the human skulls are the oldest tests so far from the continent, and their shape is set to inflame the further a controversy over Native American burial rites. Mexico appears to have been crossroads for people spreading across the Americas. The skulls were analyzed by scientists from John Moores University in Liverpool in UK with the help from teams in Oxford and Mexico itself. They came from a collection of 27 skeletons of early humans kept at the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. They were originally discovered more than 100 years ago in the area surrounding the city. The latest radiocarbon dating techniques allow dating to be carried out on the tiny quantities of the bone, although the process is expensive. Dr. Sylvia Gonzalez, who dated the skull, said the museum knew that the remains were of a significant historical value, but they haven't been scientifically dated. I decided to analyze small bone samples from 5 skeletons using the latest carbon dating techniques, she told BBC News Online. I think everybody was amazed at how old they were. But the earliest humans remains tested prior to this has been dated at approximately 12,000 years ago. Domestic tools dated at 14,500 years have been found in Chile, but with no associated human remains. But the latest dating is not only confirmation, but that the humans were presented in the Americas much earlier than 12,000 years ago, but also that they were not related to early Native Americans. The two oldest skulls were dilophallic, leucophaglic or something like that, dilophallic. Okay, that's a long, narrow-headed. Other and more recent skulls were different shape, short and broad like those from the Native Americans' remains. This suggests that humans are dispersed with Mexico in two distinctive ways, that our race, long, narrow-headed, and humans may have lived in North America prior to the American Indians, but the traditionally American Indians were thought to have been first arrived on the continent. Crossing from Asia in the land, Dr. Gonzalez told BBC News Online, we believe that the older race may have come from what is now Japan, Pacific, and perhaps the California coast. Our project is to examine remains found in Baja Peninsula and California and look at their DNA to see if they are related. Okay, scientific analysts of early skulls finds and use of have often halted by the Native American customs, which assumes that any ancient remains involved in their ancestry must be handed over. However, their evidence that another race may have predated the Native Americans could strengthen legal challenges from researchers to force access to such remains. Dr. Gonzalez said Mr. Research could have implications for the ancient burial rights of North American Indians. Dr. Gonzalez have now been awarded a grant from the Mexican government and the UK's Natural Environment Research Council to continue her work for 3 years. Yeah, the Pinon woman. So we're going to get into the woman. I mean, it's a link to her story. We're going to get into that. And Lucia, now here we get into the nitty gritty right here. So we're going to see who's in the chat and just appreciate everybody came through. So, and that's just, that's just the pieces and thesis we was coming through. He said he's just taking notes. Yeah. And, that's just pieces of it. You know what I'm saying? This is part of, prehistoric America, so we're going to get into the rest, but we found the woman. But shout out to this dude, the website, the Black Scholar, that put this together. I mean, he's got a lot, and I may give y'all the link to this later and do some pieces on it. Y'all can read the DNA thesis for yourselves. So as we could see, Dr. Sylvia Gonzalez studied this Pinon woman, but they got links to her story. So, I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to read this because I'm going to skim through this and do North America. In biological earth science, analyzed skeletons from Baja California, peninsula of Mexico. She found that they have long, narrow heads. They are quite different from the short, broad skulls of today's Native Americans. But the bones stored at the National Museum's Anthropology, Mexico City, have been carbon dated. One well-preserved skull, dubbed the Pinon woman, was found to be 12,700 years old, placing the several thousand years before the arrival of people from the north. They appear more similar to Southern Asians and Australians and population of the South and Pacific Rim, and then they do Northern Asians. And Dr. Gonzalez of Liverpool and John Moores University told the British Association's annual meeting in the excerpt on the Baja California Peninsula, the population, the long-headed individuals known as the Precuas, appears to have survived until the 18th century when they died out because of the disease. That's the skull of a female right here. It's an indigenous person, but it's old. They probably put it in clay right now. They got a lot of research. And this is Lucia. They found her skull right here, one of her peoples, and the skulls they found of a female. They did a documentary on this way back years ago. Mock-up of what Lucia may look like Brazil 12,000 BCE. That's in Brazil, by the way. They did that and did her piece. And that's what the people looked like back in the day. See, if they was alive back in those days, you would know. A female woman. It's a little different what they look like in early life. That's a different species of people. It's amazing. But the crossbreeding kind of changed humans all over time. You know how that went. Now it's dealing with blood DNA and haplogroups and things like that. Okay. Hamid, Lucia, morphology, affinities of the earliest known American. That's what they say. Several studies concerning the extracontinental morphological affinities of the Paleo-Indian skeletons carried out independently in South and North America have indicated that the Americas were first occupied by non-Mongoloids that made their way to the New World through the Bering Strait in ancient times. The first South Americans show a clear resemblance to the modern South Pacific and African populations. And none of these analyzed the first Americans show any resemblance to the to either North, East Asian or modern Native Americans. So far, these studies have indicated the affirm and putative early skeletons thought to date between 8,000 to 10,000 years BP. In this work, in the extracontinental morphological affinities of a Paleo Indian skeleton, well dated between 11,000 to 11,500 years BP, Lapse the Vermelia IV, Hamid I, or Lucia is investigated using the comparative samples of Howell's 1989 Worldwide Modern Series, Hapgoods in 1985's World late to the results of the obtained clearly confirm the idea that the Americas were first colonized by the generalized Homo sapiens population, which inhabited the East Asia in the late Pleistocene before the definition of the classic Mongoloid morphology. Above the skull belonged to the roughly 20-year-old Australoid woman. They say Australoid woman, 20-year-old Australoid woman that was unearthed in Brazil by the French archaeologist Annette Ampère in 1971, nicknamed Lucia. Since Lucia's discovery, at least 50 similar un-Mongoloid Paleo-American remains have been found in Lagoa Santa, area near where Lucia herself was found, and they also seem to have been buried within the small area that may have been a cemetery. This raised intriguing questions whether that the Lagoa Santa population at this earliest time was perhaps already settled in a specific area, and perhaps were even no longer just hunter-gatherers. So I know y'all know the story in the documentary this years ago when they first came out of Brazil, and that's showing you the piece of her right here. And you already know they did a clay on this. It's online on YouTube. I remember this years ago, about 9 years ago, when they first came out with it. At the time, people went against it. Now it's like it's, people still learning about it. I mean, I'm doing a piece on the live stream about it, just Mesoamerican. So this has already been done. I mean, you can find this on other parts of it. Eva del Nairon, woman of Las Palmas, Chanhoy, and Main El Templo. Okay. That's still in Brazil, probably. Or Argentina. My fault. Argentina or Chile. We're getting hard of. Okay. Deep inside the underwater cave in Mexico, archaeologists may have discovered the oldest human skeleton ever found in the Americas, dubbed Eva del Nairon. Of Eve of Del Nairon, the female skeleton have been dated at 13,600 years old. If that age is accurate, the skeleton, along with three others found in underwater caves along the Caribbean coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. The remains have been evacuated over the past 4 years. The town of the Tulum, about 80 miles southwest of the Cancun, by the team of scientists led by Arturo Gonzalez, director of the Desert Museum in Sausalito, Mexico. Clues from the skeleton skulls and hint that the people may not have been Northern Asian descent, which would contradict the dominant theory of the New World settlement. That theory holds that the ancient humans first came to the North America from Northern Asia. VA, I'll say, hold on. Let's look at this right here. Okay. VA now submerged land a bridge across the Bering Sea. The shape of the skulls that had led us to believe that Eva and the others have more affinity with people in the South Asia and North Asia, Gonzalez explained. The three other skeletons, okay, evacuating the caves have been given a date, a range of 11,000 to 14,000 years ago, based on the radiocarbon dating. The remains were found some 50 feet, 15 meters below sea level in the caves of Tulum. But at the time, Eva Nairon is believed to have lived there. Sea levels were 200 feet, 60 meters lower, and the Yucatan Peninsula was wide and dry, pari to the polar ice caps, and melted dramatically 8,000 to 900 years ago, causing sea levels to rise hundreds of feet and submerge in the burial grounds of the skeletons. On the Salites and the stalagmites then grew around the remains of, preventing them from being washed out to sea. Gonzalez has also found remains of elephants, giant sloths, and other ancient fauna in the caves. So, we get another part of the history too. Fells Caves is a rock shelter in the valley of the Chico River, now far from the Strait of Magellan, and the Chilean part of the Terra del Fuego archipelago, and was initially occupied by hunters in 10,000 BCE, who have left behind an impressive layer of refuse, which was sealed by hundreds of pounds of debris from the fall and what the shelter overhang. But the hunters refused to indicate fire pots with the broken bones of the native horse, sloth, and guanaco, as well as the stone bones tools. And among the stone tools were fishtail spirit points. In a form of stone point found in many places in South America, fishtail points are flaked and bifacial, that is, worked on both sides, and have pronounced shoulders above, clearly the shape and the stem. Some are fluted with small channels removed from the bottom. In 1936 to 37, discoveries in Fells Cave represented the first evidence of the earliest humans in South America, since the old sites, much as Monte Verde, have been identified. So there you go. The sites are Argentina, Chile, and Argentina, as you can see right up in here. That's how they look like in the Strait of Magellan. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it looks like Fells Cave seen from across to the Rio Chico. Yeah, there you go, in those caves. And it's in Argentina as well. And that's what the people would look like in indigenous wise, and the baby on the back. That's what they look like. And that's what the tribal in Chile and things like that. That's a whole nother piece. Monte Verde, Chile. I ain't gonna read none of this. Like, I'll give y'all the whole meat of it. I skimmed through that. Yeah. I'll give y'all the whole thing in a minute. We're gonna analyze the date. Analyze available suggests the chronology of the migration of the Americas goes something like this: 200,000 BCE, well before the Australoids were coming in from the south. 2000 BCE to 7000 BCE, Polynesians were coming in from the south, which is true. Amerindians, 7000 BCE, that's now, were coming in from the north cross of the Bering Strait, with the Eskimo being the last of these migrants. Olmec. We're going to go with the Olmec. Hold on. Olmec. There's still no definitive word as to when the Olmec got here. 8,000 to 4,000 BCE. Interesting. They still searching that to this day. That's the problem right here. They're part of the Australoid people as well, the Olmec people. We haven't seen what they bodies look like. We've seen the head, but we got to see the bodies. While all these new evidence established the Australoids and Polynesians were the first inhabitants of the Americas, it does not explain how they got there. In northern route in the Bering Straits, blah, 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 work for there. They're more logical. Yeah. Polynesian stick chart. These are the canoes. I did a piece on the history of Hawaii. I did a stream on it and talked about the Polynesians and things. I already done covered this. I done covered this too. And talk about New Zealand and all this stuff. The Maori people navigated by the canoes. Yeah, I already covered this. They added this too, because this site has it all. Another possibility, open sea distance to Java, Indonesia, and Lama, Peru, and about 10,990 miles below the Clovis migration. Yeah. Arctic Ocean. Yeah. It's another clue and all this stuff. The Clovis theory. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to give y'all this piece right here. I'm going to talk about North America in a minute. This is going to be in the live chat. Y'all can read the rest for yourself. I explained the prehistoric America. We talked about the, what's that called? The bee tree raptor, all the way through these indigenous people that's Australian Polynesian descent. It's another piece where we're going to try to piece it. And that's just what it is, you know, at this point. So we're going to go here and do that. And what's going on, Mike V? What's going on, bro? So, you know what I'm saying? We're going to go in here for a minute. So we're going to go North America right now. So, yeah. And we're going to get into it. And that's what basically we're gonna have right here. So we're gonna go all this other stuff. So yeah, we're gonna, and yeah, let's see. I appreciate it, College Jane. Yeah, we're gonna go ancient Black Americans, ancient man and his first civilization, preferring fantasy over science. Yeah, I ain't gonna get into that. They going against the white man. You know, I already know how I feel on that. That's a different genetics. Indigenous Americas, North America during the 16th century brought many more European men to France, Ireland, Great Britain, who have took North Amerindian women as wives, and their children became known as the Métis. But yeah, that's a whole. Yeah, I'm not gonna read much of that. We know the history. We'll get into the proof right here. The bone structures. Let's get into the bones. Let's get into the DNA bone structures. Um, shit. Yeah. There's something wrong with my phone. There's something wrong with my phone. There's something wrong with my phone. Something wrong with my phone. Yeah, I gotta restart it. Yeah, I done froze it. Yeah, something wrong with it. Okay, proof of the common blackness of ancient humans. I'm gonna go right through it. My phone was freezing up. I don't like that. Modern human skulls of the black person constructed from fragments from Peachtree. Okay, the cave, which bones, Carpathian Mountains in Romania in 2020. Yeah, and that's talking about in Europe. Okay, we got to skim through that. We're going to talk about that. Okay, Clifford the Master, the original Indian tribal lands location. Yeah, the Paleo Americans and the Black U.S. Indians. Yeah, they could be from a different stock. That's what they looked at. I believe that's young woman Lucia. We talking about that's 99. They actually found pics of this, and there's in Mexico another woman. So they've been doing research on these. These could be the out of that Polynesian Australoid stock, Central America and South America. Interesting. So we're talking about these skulls. And they did it in clay. I think I seen this 9 years ago. And they talked about it. And this is the Kennewick Man we just talked about earlier, reconstructed, nicknamed the Kennewick Man. That's North America. That's what those people look like. Yeah, that's in North America. And in South America, that's what these people look like. These are Australoid people in the skull, what they would look like. And that's the skulls they found. Yeah, it's a lot of problems. Yeah, man. Hold on. Get this off the screen. So we're gonna get into that in a minute. Hold on for a minute, because I'm gonna see what's wrong. Because it was a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems on my end. Yeah, I don't like when things get wrapped up and freezed up like that, because it was a lot of frozen. Yeah, make sure my phone is working, because it usually freeze up like that. Okay, note the skulls found in warm Mineral Springs, Florida, circa 10,000 years ago, has not been constructed for the obvious reasons, race issues in southern USA. However, scientific analysis was done by a 2005 study published by the National Academy of Science, Brazil, which found them constant with other earliest American settlers. They describe that the remains dustly, the earliest South Americans tend to be more similar to present Australians, Malaysians, sub-Sahara Africans. See excerpts from the study below, as well as a link to the full study. Yeah, they talk about the full study right here. Yeah, the Gettysburg skulls originally found while tilling the garden of the historic Banner Farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania in 1949. It was thought to be of a Civil War soldier. However, the analysts determined that it was a skull of a Native American man, black by nose, bridge of type, age 22 to 25, who likely lived around 1269, 1299 in the American Southwest. What a young man from the Southwest was doing on the East Coast in Pennsylvania was not disclosed, as was not evidence of from that determination. Yeah, that's back in the day. He still got these skulls. Yeah, I've done. Yeah, we're gonna get into it. The studies everyone come across the Bering Straits. Yeah, they showing you pictures what they would look like. Those tribal people. Yeah, I'm gonna skim through that. That's talking about it. Let's talk about the United States. Ancient Black Americans and Indians of the United States and Canada. United States, though, is reasonable certainty the American, I would say, oh, my fault, that the African Z Olmec of Mexico were originally part of the Z Shang people of China who crossed the Bering Strait, entered the Americas, but there's uncertainty as to the origins of the other ancient Africans in North America. Among these are the Seminoles of Florida, the Tamicia of Western Canada, not the modern people, the Japanese of northern Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. Interesting. The Californians who legendary Queen Claffia lent her name to the state of California, but the Mississippians of South Central United States question is they are Australians, Polynesians who migrated from South Central America, or they are remnants of the Z Olmec who broke off as the main group headed south to Mexico. Yeah, these are the Olmec people. They're saying that stock. They are that Polynesian family too. There's some truth to the Olmecs being Polynesian, so we already know the true history of that. Okay, Paleo Americans and Pagan classification term given the first peoples who entered and subsequently inhabited the American continents during the first glacial episodes of the late Pleistocene. Okay, my fault. Okay, the late Pleistocene period and earlier. It is different from American Indians or Amerindians who were later migrants. Okay, click here for the special page on Black American U.S. page. Yeah, I've gave y'all a piece of that in the chat. Yeah, y'all can read that for yourselves. I'm not gonna get into that. That's a piece you can go into. You can read because I already did that piece. I'm not gonna go into that. We already know about that. We're gonna lead the Lois course. 1795 to 1828 was a famous German-Russian painter and explorer. He was one of the first sketch artists for the expedition's research. Louis Koros was a Russian of German stock, was born in Yakatar Naslav, or now Dnipropetrovsk or something like that, or Ukraine. I'll say Ukraine. I'll say Ukraine. He's born in Ukraine. Okay. In March 1795. Excuse me. March 22nd, 1795. He visited the Pacific and the west coast of North America in 1816. Hold on for a second. 1816 on the board of the Rurik and being able being attached to the capacity of the artists of the Romanzov expedition under the command of Lieutenant Otto Zent and out there for a purpose. Okay. Yeah. And I'll say the Rurik being the passage of the Romans. Okay. It's set out of the purpose exploring the Northwest Passage. Okay. It's said to have painted nature as he found it. But the essence of his art, truth, fresh, vigorous view of life, and originally in portrayal, the accompanying illustrations may therefore be looked upon as faithfully represented the subjects treated by the artist. After the voyage of the Rurik course, went to Paris, where he issued a portfolio of his drawings and a lithographic reproduction study in the ateliers of Jared and Regnault, and Chorus worked extensively in the pastels. He documented the Ophidian people in the missions of San Francisco, California in 1816. Interesting. The native Ophidian Costian people. Interesting people. That's what they look like. That's what they would look like. They show you down here. We'll get to them in a minute. Olian people, also known as the Costian, are Native American people of Central and Northern California coast. When the Spanish explorers, missionaries arrived in the late 18th century, the Olian, I'll say the Olian inhabited that area along the coast from San Francisco Bay through Monterey Bay to the lower Salinas Valley. At that time, they spoke a variety of languages. Ohlone languages belong to the Custodian subfamily of the Utah language family, which itself belonged to the purpose of the Penobscot language of phylum. The term Ohlone has been used place of the Custodian, and since the 1970s by some descendants groups and by the most ethnographers of historians and writers of popular literature in pre-colonial times, but the Olian lived up in more than 50 distinctive landholding groups. Did not view themselves as a distinct people. They lived by hunting, fishing, and gathering in the typical ethnographic California pattern, but the members of these various bands interacted freely with one another as they built friendships and marriages, trade tools, other necessities, and partook in cultural practices. But the Ohlone people practiced the Kushku religion. Before the Spanish came, the Northern California region was one of the most densely populated regions north of Mexico. However, in years in 1769 to 1833, the Spanish missions in California have had a devastating effect on the Ohlone culture. The Ohlone population declined steeply during this period. Yeah, that's what these people looked like back in those days. And you saw the Spanish did. And the Spanish wasn't a strong empire. It was just a period of people that was on conquest. They didn't have enough power. France kind of fucked that up, if you want to get technical. That's what those people look like by Lewis Corus in 1860. And that's what they look like. That's what the people look like. The ancient, now extinct, they said ancient but now extinct Ohlone people of California show clear phenotype affinity with certain modern African tribes. Yeah, those people extinct. So we already know. Extinction was inevitable. The Indians playing a game at California Mission by, they didn't last long. It was killed off. And they show you right there. San Francisco Bay. I showed you that earlier. I'll show you that earlier in in the prehistoric American. Indians of the Bay Area of San Francisco, California. That's what they look like. Yeah, they died off. Yeah, Spanish breed them out. That's why you got a lot of ancestral, you know. June 26, 1579, ceremony of St. Francis Drake being crowned with a headdress by California indigenous people. There you go. So Francis Drake, yeah, he was a traveler. And that was 16, yeah, he explored. There's a lot of people explored this land. Indigenous people had this land on lock. Show you the pictures. They don't teach you this in history. Pieces of that. So depictions of them, the Americas and pictures like that. So California Indians and things like that. Columbia University. New Netherlands appeal from New England. Yeah. Early depictions of the new Netherlands. So we ain't gonna. I'm just gonna skim through. It's a long read because I don't know how many hours. We can go to Yoki, calling people. Oh wow. We're gonna skim through all this because some of this stuff y'all probably already know, but hold on. I might do the Frederick. Hold on. Frederick von Wreck. We're gonna read this piece. Hold on. We're gonna read this piece. Because a lot of stuff, I'll make sure my shit's right. In 1736, Philip George Frederick von Wreck, the only 25-year-old, sailed with the other colonists from Germany to Georgia. One of his intentions expressed in the letter before he left Europe was to bring back from America a clear proof of what he called this strange new world, the idealistic and enthusiastic, well-educated, and blessed with an amazing artistic gift. Von Wreck kept a travel diary, wrote separate descriptions of the plants and animals and Indians he discovered in Georgia. He drew some 50 watercolor pencil sketches of what he saw. Note, these drawings are reproductions of racism may or may not affect their modern appearance. Yeah. And that's what they look like. Yeah. That's a German, 1730s, what they look like. The Yuchi, the Koya people, sometimes known as the Yuchi, also spelled Uchi. I mean, my fault. Uchi. Okay. Uchi. They said Uchi and Yuchi. Okay. People of the Native American tribes who traditionally live in the eastern Tennessee River Valley in Tennessee. Yeah, I heard about these people. They did exist. Yeah, they did exist. In the 16th century, the Yuchi were well known from builders. During the 17th century, they moved to Alabama, Georgia, to South Carolina after suffering many fatalities due to the epidemic disease and warfare. In the 18th century, several surviving Yuchi were removed to the Indian Territory in 1830s, together with their allies, the Muskogee Creek. Yeah, I remember Muskogee Creek. And some who remain in the South were classified as free persons of color, which is true. Heard about this story. Others were enslaved. Some remnant of groups migrated to Florida when they became part of the recent formed Seminole tribe of Florida. These were the original Seminoles, by the way. There was no such thing as Seminoles back in the day. It was these people. This is important. I'm going to put this piece in here. Today, the Yuchi live permanently in the northeastern Oklahoma area, where many are enrolled as citizens in a federal recognized Muskogee Creek Nation, which is true today. And some Yuchi are enrolled members in other federally recognized tribes, such as the absentee Shawnee tribe and the Cherokee nations. Yeah, they birthed the Cherokees too and the Seminoles. That makes sense. They all come from this stock back in the day. Mambra, Yuchi, as called. Yeah, there you go right here. Dancing Yuchi. Yeah, he's a warrior. They got the hairstyle and you know how that goes. And the people and the painting. They had them as slaves. They didn't care nothing about them. They treated them like shit. That's the little boy and the mom. Man, woman of, yeah, Fox Indians, Wisconsin, Jonathan Carver, 1781. So, yeah, man, some rough stuff. Indigenous populations. I'm not mad, but that's part of life. You know, it's conquest. You know, we'll get into that and we'll talk about it or whatever. But hold on. Interesting to note, judging by these two mentioned etchings of the British public of Black Native American tribes more emblematic of America than the Mongol mixed mulatto tribes. And that's the British, those colors, Roman colors, by the way. And that's the indigenous people emblem of America. So, yeah, it's in the museum. Yeah. So, show you all the pictures. Yeah. It's a long read, but historical Great West, Black Limbey, Delaware tribes of Indians. The massacres. Yeah, that's a long read. They're showing you all the indigenous people. I'll show you the pictures instead because it's a long read. Because a lot of stuff y'all may know and stuff like that. But I'll give y'all this. I'll see what I look like on time and stuff. Let's see. I'm going to get into it. Hold on. The American genocide of Columbus in 1492. Okay. We'll see what I look like on time. Yeah, I got plenty of time. Yeah, I got plenty of time. I got plenty of time to kill. You know what I'm saying? I got plenty of time. Oh, I ain't getting that. I know it's a good phone. Don't get me wrong. So, as what I'm going to say, we're going to talk about the American genocide. We're going to get into that. I'm going to skim the rest of this because I'm not going to get into that. That's, you know, the Seminoles, and we already know about the peoples and things like that. You know, they're darker skin. The Delaware Limpy, you know, yeah, they got their bloodlines. Okay. 2015. Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, let me tell you something. It's possible. I'm not going to get into, we're saying Australia if we're mixed with them, but I'm not going to get in that conversation. That's a whole nother, the Seminoles, that's a whole nother conversation. Okay. So the Seminoles is in Florida. Typical white man's history. Yeah, I'm not going to get into Seminoles history. We already know about them. Y'all can read half of this. Let's go to the genocide. We're going to get to the heart of it. At the time of Columbus landing the Americas in 1492, but actually he was in Jamaica. He didn't really discover it. His people came later. Don't get me started with him. That's a whole nother conversation. The population of the hemisphere was approximately 100 million people, but 6 million in the Caribbean, 10 million in the United States, 40 million in New Mexico, and Central America was 44 million in South America. By 1650, the Indian population of the Caribbean and Mexico, Central America, and South America were approximately 15 million people total. Today, our Amerindian population of the Caribbean is all but extinct. By 1906, the Indian population of the United States and Canada was only 1 million. The systematic killings for their land and goods being killed through the overwork, malnutrition of slavery, and the use of disease as a biological weapon, where the indigenous Americans were purposely infected with smallpox and other such diseases. The albinos would give give blankets and clothing of the European killed by a disease like smallpox, measles, to impoverish indigenous Americans whose immune systems were already weak because of overwork and malnutrition. These methods killed almost 9 of every 10 people. However, the story later generations of American albinos tell to cover up the atrocities committed in the Americas, which is just plain stupid. But that is just a ridiculous assertion that the indigenous Americans were wiped out by European diseases that they had no immunity for. And it was a testament to the albino's conclusion that never has any albino medical professional come forward and say the truth. Initially, no one has immunity from a disease, but immunity is developed only after you have gotten and survived particular disease. Thus, anyone from anywhere, if they have not had measles or measles vaccines, they will get sick if exposed to the measles virus. DDO, smallpox, and other diseases such as the diseases kill some Europeans. They would, of course, also kill some indigenous Americans or Africans and Australians or Asians or Pacificans or Martians. Oh, see, he's playing with me. Okay. But since those diseases did not kill 80 to 90,000 of European population, 80% American population, 80%, okay, Australian populations, yeah, same thing. And we confirmedly concluded that the claim that those diseases killed 90% indigenous American populations is a vile albino lie. Yeah, of course. Talk about American genocide. Now, some of them will crossbreed it. What this guy was saying, there's some truth to that. Canada. Let's talk about the Canadian natives, the early people, Canadians. Modern Tishmia territory. That's what they look like, folks. I wish I have this as an avatar. I don't know, but I can't. Not on this Google laptop. So let's see. I'm gonna get this right quick. And let's see right quick. Stone mask, soapstone painted with red and green pigments, 24 times 22.5, 18.2 centimeters. William Duncan, the missionary, established a mistake. Hold on, let's get in this real quick. Get this. Excuse me for that. Established by the Melancholitia, British Columbia, by unknown means, came into possession of the sight mask. He offered the stone mask for sale in 1878. It was collected from the missionary by explorer Alphonse Pinart and donated to the Musée de Homemade in Paris in 1881. But the Ottawa mask was collected in 1879 by Israel Wood Powell, Deputy Commissioner of Indian Affairs for the British Columbia. Although he recorded the acquiring the mask of the Kitakala, Powell did not visit the village that year. In the view of the confusion in his records, it is probable that he acquired another community, one possibility in that both masks originate in Port Simpson. Separated for over 100 years, and two masks were not reunited until 1975, when the Paris mask traveled to Canada to appear in the expedition. It was then that the relationship between the two masks, expressions of the same face, was discovered. The Canadian mask without features for eyes and fits snugly over the Paris mask with its round eye holes. It is thought that the pair was worn in the Naxonox performance where an individual and personal power was developed. Display in dance. But the present illusions of the eyes actually opening and closing the dance must have turned quickly while removing the blind mask and to reveal the one of the eye holes. The dancer would have need to considerably strength to hold the 4 kilogram, almost 9 pounds, entered in sight mask in place with the wooden mouthpiece. Although the harness attached through the holes in the mask and the rim might have helped support it, it is unsighted. Mask may have been held in the hand, concealed by the dancers in costumes, but the exact age of the mask unknown, although the Paris Museum exhibits their in BCE collection, indicating that this is over 2,000 years old. But the Conservation Canadian Conservation Institute, Department of Canadian Heritage, has undertaken an analysis of their masks, but their results are yet unpublished. They talk about the stone mask, what we see up here, as you can see, talking about the Americas. I see indigenous people right here. Deputation of Indians from Chippewa tribes in the present Upper Canada, Sir Frederick Robin KCB, Major General, 1851. 1815, my fault, 1815, and all the National of Canadian. They put Colin Kaepernick on here. Oh my God. No, he didn't. Angela Davis and Colin Kaepernick, they saying they Canadian. Okay. I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Talking about the people in Canada. Yeah, there they go. United States Mississippians. That's a whole nother. Yeah. Let's see what I look like on time. What's going on, 1Gs? Oh, that Pixel 6 is nice. My dad tried to buy one yesterday. He got pissed. It wasn't not on the market in T-Mobile. Sucks to be him. Yeah. It's almost an hour. Well, damn, I got time. I got time. Let me talk about this. Okay. Cultures with the Mississippian characteristics began to flourish in Mid-South around 800 and 900 CE, peaked around 1200 and 1500 CE. But the widespread adoption of the maize provide a newfound source which encouraged the prominent year-round settlements, a growth of populations, intensive corn agriculture supplemented with squash beans after 1200 CE. I will say provide a surplus of food that could be easily stored and traded. Use of the bow and arrow tipped with the small triangular parts greatly increased hunting efficiency. Advances were also made in pottery and technology, shelled, tempting to provide stronger vessels and increase cooking efficiencies. A variety of vessel forms began to be used, in including jars, bowls, bottles, pans, plates. Also, vessels were made that depict animals or people, known as the effigy vessels, as well as the intricately engraved and kissed or painted vessels. And some Mississippians also practice artificial cranial deformation or head shaping. But the spread of these Mississippian culture traits was facilitated by vast, widespread trade network. Head shaping is one of the strange customs that Africans carry with them around the world. The customs was later taken up and carried on by many of the mulatto people that Africans produce. They always do some weird shit like that. But hey, that's what they do. I mean, we don't do that. I mean, we don't look like that. That's probably Papua New Guineans and these species. People in the Congo. Yeah, that's these tribal. They do some weird shapes like that. It's kind of funny to me. Mississippian culture, 800 1600 CE. Wow. Show you the woman, the pottery. These are indigenous people, Mississippians, and all that. Settlements located predominantly in floodplains and the large rivers. These floodplains offer rich, well drained, easily tilled soils and conductive cultivation of maize, squash, beans, nearly fish and waterfowl were readily available in these locations to provide an additional source of protein. Also, the harvesting of wild foods such as the nuts and fruits provide further source of protein and fat. Animals such as deer, raccoon, and turkey also remain important source of food. So they ate raccoon, turkey, and deer meat. Interesting. That's why you got a lot of people like those things in real life. A lot of people eat raccoons, man. Wow. Effigy Bowl, Mississippi, 1000 CE. Yeah, 1000 CE. Mississippian pottery, 800 to 1600 CE. Northeast of Arkansas. Yeah. So you got it. During the Mississippian period, people began to settle in large towns that were a center of the government and religious life. Most Mississippian period towns were built around central plaza, including one more large flat top mounds. These mounds were used as a base or substructure for the temples and houses for the elite members of the community. The plazas provide a large central and open space for ceremonial and social events. Commoners' lives were led by powerful chiefs, priests who controlled trade, made alliances with the neighboring towns, or waged war. Many of the large Mississippian mound centers were fortified by earthen embankments and ditches. These features are barely visible in many places today due to the plowing and development of the Mississippian period. It's commonly divided into three subnets in early, middle, and late. So Mississippi culture 816 CEs right here. As you can see, the man right there. The Mississippian culture, same here, same time period on the left. There's different versions of them. These are indigenous people, by the way, of darker complexion. Earlier, I'll say the early Mississippian period. Shell tempered was the new ingredient in pottery. Shell tempered pottery was true technological innovation that liberalized shape and increased strength. And another benefit of the shell tempered pottery was increased efficiency in cooking. Arrow points first occur at this time with the Mid-South. The technological advance of the bow and arrow was greatly increased hunting efficiency. The discoidal or chunky stones appears also with the inception of the Mississippian period, was used in the chunky game. Early Mississippian period sites were comprised mainly of farmsteads, helmets, small villages, and large villages. Mississippian population usually was dispensed in farmstead and villages in order to take place best possible advantages of the environment. Spiral Mound, Oklahoma, soapstone pipe warrior beheads his victim. Looks like an animal or something like that. Yeah, beheads his victim. Could be an animal or something like that. There you go. Farmstead helmets were related to central villages, which in turn were related to the paramount village. Redistribution and the storage of the surplus took place in large villages and administration centers. The main advantage of this type of the organizations was greater productivity and the ability to support and control large populations. Surplus food was used in many ways, and storages provided an insurance against future crop loss. Another use was to support craft. Specializations in which work was done in shelled stone, pottery, wood. Surplus was also used for feasts. When administrative centers were embellished and repaired, ceremonies must have taken place often, accompanying and plating and all that. And that's and accompanying plating often and harming which of the burials and like people who held high risk within the community. Tolic, Mississippian ceremonial and Emerald Mound in Northeast and Trace, Mississippian, USA. The middle of Mississippian period. Mississippian began around 1001 I'll say 1050 CE, but the population was dispersed in farmsteads and helmets and small advantages in 1100 CE. Villages between increasingly associated with the ceremony, which became civic ceremonial center. Villages also became stockade with the rows of houses with the ceremonial component enclosed inside protection of the ceremonial center. The population obviously began increasingly important archaeological indications warfare were introduced during time. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Somebody call me like that. Here we go. 1200 by 1250 CE, the political system had became composed of the sites included previously mentioned in civic ceremonial center of the mounds associated with the placid villages are surrounded by dispersed farmsteads. Waffle Dwab, while trench houses developed by were not widespread. Above ground, storages provide during this time in order to protect surplus foods for small animals. Pottery became fairly standardized and well made, is very effigy and painted. Vessels from were being produced, but were still largely restricted ceremonial burial use. There we go. Late Mississippian period. At major large sites during the late Mississippi period, highly distinctive artifacts was deposited in burial mounds. These artifacts were symbolic of religious cult in which was chiefly elite were apparent and leading participants among these southern ceremonial complexes and subjects were and carved and from single choice piece of stones and polished and chopped stone batons and maces, copper pendants decorated and with circles or weeping eyes, shell gadgets depicting food peckers, rattlesnakes or spiders in pottery vessels and decorated with circles and crosses and hands and skulls and rattlesnakes, flying horned serpents. Feather serpents and copper plates, engraved shell cups and portraying male figures, perhaps warriors or shamans or deities, wearing eagle or falcon costumes and sometimes carrying a baton in one hand and trophy head in another. Mississippian pottery head, Mississippian stone pipe. So yeah, so it's 10:08 Eastern time. So the warfare increased between Mississippian societies during this time. This was most likely due to the increase of the competition for scarce agricultural land among growing populations. Archaeological and increase in warfare is evident in several ways. For example, many Mississippian sites were fortified with palisades, skeletons with embedded arrowheads have been uncovered. Scalping or beheading is depicted in artwork, and there are numerous portrayals in Mississippian artwork of scalping or beheading, as well as the severed trophy heads. Yeah, they was violent back then. It was barbaric with this shit. That's still statues, Mississippian decoration, hair and hairs. Yeah, that's what the people. That's what they look like, a woman and man. Yeah, that's what they were. Black Indian slaves, But yeah, this is The North American piece, I'll give y'all the whole link. I'll give you the meat of it because I had like a phone call, but I'll wait before I do this stream because I'm streaming tonight. I'm not going to be distracted by that. So I'm not got time for distractions right now because I want to talk about certain things. But yeah, this is it for the North American piece right here. And then you want to talk about Black Americans. So we talked about a few things, right? We talked about the North American part and the prehistoric man. We talked about this today. Next week, I will talk about these two. I'll talk about this. I'll talk about the whole South America thing. Now, Olmec and Mesoamerica, that's going to be a separate subject. That's like in Meso, that's in the central. And the Olmec period, I know y'all know this, but it's not that much to talk about. I think I talked about that piece before. But this right here, I'll talk about this next Wednesday because next Wednesday, I'm going to be focused on that period and start talking into it and try to be more focused on it. But yeah. So what we talked about today is the people of the prehistoric America. We talk about the origins of Black people of North America, the indigenous folk right here. So we talk about the raptor, the bee tree raptor, and that's just the thing, you know. So that's what you want. So I'm not trying to worry about what's going on. So you know what I'm saying? That's what you got to look for and things like that. So I'm not worried about what's going on. So that's how it is. Yeah. So yeah, we talked about a little bit of everything, the Beachy Raptor and things like that. So it's all good. So I'm good on time. Um yeah, appreciate everybody came through because I don't know if I want to draw this out a little bit. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. So let's go on Bronzebird. Yeah, peace to you, bro. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, yeah, it's been 2 hours. So, you know, I'm about to hop off here because, yeah, tomorrow I'll do a Friday special madness. I'll talk about what I talked about in that self live stream I talked about. I'll cover some few things about the pill talk that I talked with Cerulean. I will talk about a lot of shit that's unnecessary in these spaces, but I'm gonna break that down. Because why I said in that live stream is important, you know, because I'm so sick of hearing about that meetup shit because I'm gonna break it down to a science and what's gonna happen you know, the winter, but I ain't gonna go in depth. I'm just gonna make it brief. It's a warning. And that's a distraction in itself. We should not be worrying about that. That's just certain individuals wanting to get their rocks off. But tonight I was talking about this. This is important to me because I felt like this would need to be get out. Because the next Wednesday I will talk about South America and things like that. But tonight I will focus on this. I intend this to be 2 hours because I know this is not an open discussion. I'll do that Friday. And I'll write some notes where I'll talk about on that stream about that meetup stream that I did and got some views off of that. But yeah. So with that, I'm just gonna end this and hope y'all enjoy. And you know, I just put some links in the historical links and just threw them in the chat. Just put them in your saves or bookmarks and you watch laters and that just shows you what's going on. And I don't have to break down the pill stuff that, you know, me and Sir really talked about Friday, because Friday's going to be open to session. It's going to be a different conversation. So we got to get away from shit that's not relevant. You know, let's talk about the real and, you know, just put your stuff out and just spread it. You know, I'm about spreading shit around. But this one I could have did years ago. I didn't really regret it at the time because at the time I wasn't even focused on the historical stuff. I was on the Hebrew stuff for like those 3 years, and then took a hiatus and learned something else. So you know what I mean. I'm not gonna draw this out any longer. So you know what I mean, because that's what time it is. So I appreciate everybody came through today. So you know what I'm saying. I'm going to exit full screen, but you know how it is. What's going on, D Scott? Salute, bro. And yeah, appreciate y'all. Everybody came through. RPA, Bronze Bird, Juan G's, DeAndre, Mike V. Who else came through? Appreciate he came through. Trey came through. Conservative came through. He said he's taking notes. Okay. Degenerate, what's going on, bro? Appreciate you coming through. Shaw Willie, who else came through? Trinity, appreciate you, girl. Come through. Past the $40. Yeah, man. It's I'm hiding. Okay, what's going on, PK? But yeah, I just dropped a little information on it. So I'll talk about it that next Wednesday. I'll talk about what you call it, the South American piece. I'm gonna get into that. It's a 2-part read, and then I'll have an introduction and see what that's like. So I'm signing off with that. I'm gonna say shalom, peace.